This video is going to go over Civil 3D 2018, Maryland training session number 3, working with points and point groups. Some topics that I'm going to go over: Maryland field codes, the SurvCE instructions, Maryland field codes, the magnet instructions, converting exporting points to an ASCII or text file in SurvCE, converting exporting points to a text file in Magnet, uploading points into Civil 3D 2018, working with the point groups, changing the point sizes, printing out points and the point groups, exporting points from Civil 3D for Stakeout, and adding them into Magnet software. So using NRCS Maryland field codes, where to find the field codes? They're located under the NRCS SharePoint site, under Engineering, Documents, Civil 3D Support Documents, Maryland NRCS Field Codes, and for state users, they'll be located on the S drive under Resource Conservation, Engineering, Civil 3D Support Files, Maryland NRCS Field Codes also. There's two types of field codes that you'll be aware of that's available. One is used for the Magnet software, and one is used for the SurvCE software. So if you go under the Engineering SharePoint site under NRCS for Maryland, left-hand side, if you go ahead and click Documents, you'll see the Civil 3D Support Files Document Library, Maryland NRCS Field Codes, and you'll see the XML file and also the FCL file. And then this is just an Excel spreadsheet showing you the actual breakdown of the codes themselves. The real big thing with the point groups, the way it's set up on the templates, is that there's mainly 4 groups that we're looking at in regards to numbering. Control points are located from point number 1 through 99. Existing ground goes from 100 to 2,999. The staking points go from 3,000 to 4,999. And as built, 5,000 to 9,999. The biggest thing with this is that if you're going out and surveying and you don't want to use specific prefixes on your survey, when you go into the point groups on the templates, it'll actually place these points into these specific numbering sequences, and we'll go over that a little bit later. This is just a breakdown of all the different groups that are on the templates. So we have different categories, and shown here you'll see on the categories that we have the category, the code, the full name, a symbol that's associated with that, the line type, point group name, prefixes that are associated with that, and also the point range, and just a little description of the actual point group. So next we're going to get into the Maryland field codes and the SurvCE instructions. So if you're still using SurvCE, these instructions will go over how to enter the Maryland field codes into your data collector. And like I said, where to find those field codes, again, for the state users, they're on the shared drive, and also for NRCS, you go to the shared point. So you're going to find the Maryland underscore field codes.fcl file, and you're going to copy that onto a flash drive, and then go ahead and put that USB flash drive into the data collector. The location where you want to put the field codes is under Program Files, SurvCE, as shown here on the screen. So basically you can just cut and paste that onto that file location. Now once you have that entered into your data collector, you can go ahead and open up a survey, go to your File tab, go to Job Settings, go to your Options tab, and scroll down to the Show Text View buttons and make sure that is checked. Go ahead and close that window. Then you'll want to go to your File tab, Featured Codes list. Go ahead and click Load. And then what you want to do is go back to the FCL files. If it doesn't come up FCL files as a default, you might have to do the drop down and select the FCL files, but it should go to FCL files as a default. Go ahead, navigate to the program file SurvCE location where you put those Maryland codes FCL file at. Select that, click the green check. Go ahead and click back after you load the file code on the top right hand corner. And now you'll find the field code is loaded. You can now start your survey. To have the drop down for points, go ahead and select the text button that's up here. And then what that does is goes to a different type of screen. So if you just actually type in the first letter of a specific shot, so for example, if we wanted to do a gas line, we could just type in G, and what it does in the description, it'll actually start with G, and actually you can scroll down to whatever point description you're looking for there. Now, if you know all the point descriptions by heart, obviously you don't have to do it this way, but this gives a nice description of, what is actually in that field code library. Then go ahead and select your point description and hit enter. So in this case, we hit G. First thing that came up was gas line, and we actually wanted it to be ground shot, so we hit G. Scroll down to the next shot, and it was ground shot. Go ahead and select that. The one thing you will have to do, you have to load the field codes for each job. But if you want to go back to the original type of screen without the text, click on the SurvCE icon on the top left-hand screen, then go to graph. So you can go back from text to graph if you're used to that, the graph screen. The next we'll go over the Maryland Field Codes Magnet instructions. So a lot of offices have upgraded to the FC5000 TopCon data collector, which now uses the Magnet software. This software is a little bit more user-friendly, if you will. So this is probably the instructions that you'll be most familiar with and most be helpful with. Again, you'll have to go to MDA's share drive to find this specific file, or the Maryland NRCS SharePoint site to find this specific file. But where you want to put it in the data collector is under C, Program Files, x86, Magnet Field PC, and then TPS Data. And then once you're in the data collector, go ahead and hit Configure. Select Codes. At the top, you're going to select Settings. And then on the code file, you want to go ahead and select Browse. And then make sure the type is selected as XML. And you'll notice, make sure that you're in the C Program Files, x86 Magnet Field PC, TPS Data. And if you put it in the right spot, you'll see the Maryland Codes XML file located there. Go ahead and select that. And then the code file is shown here. And then once you have that selected, make sure the default type is at prompt, data entry is codes, and then code with description is checked. Then go ahead and hit the check mark. So it's pretty easy loading the field codes into the Magnet software. Same with the SurvCE, it's just getting those field codes in there. Next, we're going to go over converting, exporting points to an ASCII or text file in SurvCE. So once you've completed your survey, you must now convert that CRD file that was created into an ASCII file or a text file that's able to be read in the Civil 3D. So in order to do that, go ahead and click the File tab, then click on Import Export tab. Click on Export ASCII File tab. And on this screen, you'll see the file type user define. Please keep note that this is probably the most important step throughout this process. So when it's collecting data, it collects the data, but you have to export that data in a specific way that you want it read into Civil 3D. So in this case, we have a point ID, a north, east, elevation description. So that's PNEZD. So you'll make sure you write that down, knowing that when you go to import it into Civil 3D, it's in the same exact order. Delimiter is coordinate, and comma is what we've been using. You could do space, but if you're doing space, just make sure you select space when you bring it into the data, into the actual job itself. The range, it's automatically going to select that range for you, depending on how many points you have. So in this case, we have 1 to 5,037. Or you can actually go in there and select certain points if you want to. So if you only wanted to do 1 to 100, you could do that. But it selects the entire points that are within that job as a default. And again, make sure when you use the below format to make sure that the ASCII file, that it's an ASCII file, that it's PNEZD. Like I said, this is very important, bringing these points into Civil 3D. Sometimes I've seen it where the northern and eastern's been reversed and the drawing's actually flip-flopped when you bring it into the Civil 3D. And you're kind of confused, like, man, what's going on? It's just, opposite of what I've surveyed. In that case, you just have to go back out and export those points correctly, bring them back in, and they should show fine. Go ahead and name your job, and you'll notice that it will be saved as a TXT file, a text file, or an ASCII file. And then you could save it wherever your default is. Just know where you're saving it in the SurvCE file. So in this case, it's under Program Files, SurvCE Data. And then once that's done, go ahead and click OK. It's done converting everything, and now you're able to copy and paste that file into your USB drive for upload into Civil 3D. Now we'll go over the converting, exporting points to a text file in the Magnet software. So these are directions, again, are used after you completed your survey and you want to take the survey job off of the data collector and to plot the points into Civil 3D. Go ahead and open up the Magnet software on the data collector, go to the Job tab, and open the job that you're going to want to take these points out of. Go ahead and select the job and click the green check. If the above error message appears, just click Close. Just talks about the grid ground transformation is not defined in the job. Grid coordinates will be used directly. If you're actually using GPS, you will not see this error come up. It's only when you do generic grid transformation, meaning that you're starting out with 5,000, 10,000, and it's not geo-referenced. Go ahead and hit Close. Once the job is open, go ahead and click Exchange. And then we're going to select Click to File, and then once it select that, you'll see a window pop up, and you want to select the correct data and the format. So on this point, we're going to select the points as the data, and also go to the drop down for the format, TopCon Text Custom, which is a TXT file. That's what we're going to use with the magnet. It's basically a text file. There's other formats that you can do, but in this presentation, I'm just going to go over the text file. Go ahead and click Next. Go ahead and insert the flash drive into the data collector and search for the USB folder. Once you find the USB drive, go ahead and click the name, click the green check mark. And you'll notice the type is still as a text file. And again, this is the most important part, the text file format. The limiter is the comma. You want to uncheck the header in first row, and then the file style is the PNEZD. So name, northern, eastern elevation codes. Go ahead and click Next. Make sure coordinate type was grid. And again, if you were using projection, this would automatically come up showing that the projection was used. Go ahead and hit the green check mark. And if the export was done correctly, you'll actually see how many points were exported. And it'll actually give you a report saying export successfully finished. Go ahead and hit close. And now your job is located on your USB flash drive that you can now upload into Civil 3D. Go ahead and close Magnet. Exit now. Go ahead and click Yes. FC 5000, it's just like a tablet or a computer. So you want to make sure that you go down on the bottom right hand portion of the screen and click on the arrow in the bottom right hand corner, and you'll see the little USB drive. Go ahead and eject that until it says safe to remove the hardware. The only reason I say this is sometimes if you don't eject that, it will erase any information on that USB drive. So just take that in consideration. It's just like your computer that you use every day. You have to make sure you eject that USB drive. So now we're going to go ahead and explain the uploading the points into Civil 3D 2018. Go ahead and open Civil 3D 2018. Select the template that you'll be using. In this case, we'll just go ahead and open up a template for Grassed Waterway. Go ahead and select your working folder, as we explained in the previous trainings. So points are basic building blocks in AutoCAD Civil 3D. They're numbered and named uniquely. Each point has properties that can include information such as northern and eastern elevation and description. A point that is displayed in a drawing can have additional properties that control its appearance, such as a point style, a point label style, and a layer. So to add the points into your drawing, go ahead and click the Home tab, the Points drop-down Point Creation Tools, or you can type in the command line Import Points. Click the Import Points icon, which is shown down here like a little crosshair with a blue arrow to the right. So go ahead and hit the plus sign, and then you're going to go to where you had that text file saved, hopefully in the working folder that you're working with on that design. Go ahead and click that text file, click Open, and then you're going to specify the type. So the point file format. So the top one is showing the SurvCE type. and the bottom one is showing the actual Magnet software file style. So it's kind of a little bit different what they look like, but make sure that it's PNEZD, comma, delimited. And you'll notice up top here also where there's a green check. If something is incorrect or the file location is not located in the right spot, you'll see an actual X show up here. So you should have a green check mark there. And then what it will do is give you a preview of the PNEZD, comma, delimited. And just be aware that if you scroll down, it's not going to show all your points on that. As a default, do elevation adjustment if possible is selected. That's fine. Go ahead and click OK in this case. Now, once you click OK, you must go to the Prospector tab on the tool space. Right click on Point Groups on the left-hand side here and click Update. So once the exclamation point goes away, your points will now be displayed. If you still don't see them in the window, right click on Points, Zoom to. So I'm going to go over that in Civil 3D real quick. So with Civil 3D opened up, again, go to Point Creation Tools. And you'll notice here, all the way to the right, and if you hover over these little icons, it'll tell you what those mean. So in this case, we're going to import points. Hit your plus sign. And again, if you have your working folder set up correctly, it's going to default to where that's at. Select your text file. Go ahead and click Open. Has a green check mark. We're okay. And then this is where we pick our PNEZD, comma, delimited. And it gives you kind of a rough idea. Not all the points are located, like I said, in there, but it does just kind of give you a description. Does this really look right? Because if I selected something else, it's not going to give me all that information. So now if I selected E and Z, it's saying my eastern is 1, my northern and point elevation is this. Well, we know that's not correct. So you just make sure that you kind of look at this just to double check to make sure what you're actual entering is correct. Like I said, you could do elevation adjustment if possible. That's a default, or you can turn that off. It doesn't matter. Go ahead and click OK. Now in this case, since I already have points in here, I'm just going to click overwrite and apply it to them all. Go ahead and click OK. You can pin this, or you can just close it. In the Prospector tab, under Point Groups with the exclamation points, if you right click on Point Groups, if you click Update, you'll notice now those exclamation points go away, and anything that has a black dot next to them will have points associated with them. There's some type of information located in there. And if you select that, it kind of gives you a preview down below of all the points in there. So if we wanted to look at our survey control, there's 4 survey control, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just kind of a short preview of the points. So where are our points located? If you right click Point Groups, as long as you hit it Update and they're, don't have an exclamation point on them, go ahead and right click Points, Zoom to, and you'll notice in this case, I'm going to turn the map off so we can see them. You can see our points. They're located just as they're shown on the screen. So you can see here I turned the map off, and in this case it's showing actually my topo on there, but on the previous slide I was showing you with Civil 3D open, I didn't have my surface turned on. That's why my surface wasn't showing up. But this gives you the same view. So going back to Civil 3D, if I turn my surface on, if I right click on my existing ground, surface properties. Right now I have it set to no display. So if I do existing contours, 1 and 5, click apply. Changes scale to 1 to 40. Regen. And you'll notice this is what's showing up. It's a little bit different than what was shown in the PowerPoint presentation, and you'll see why on that. So there's a couple points in here I wanted to go over that's going to throw this, elevation or your surface off in that case. But we'll go over that in a second. All right, so one thing to take in consideration on this specific drawing that I want to go over is that you'll notice that I have some point groups, or actually points that have 0 elevation designated for soil borings, and it's actually taking that information and using it to provide my surface from. So the quickest and easiest way of doing or taking those points out for my existing surface, if you go in to your point groups, existing ground, you'll notice if you go to surfaces, existing ground, definition, point groups, existing ground is the point groups where it gathers that information to create your surface. So we need to go into our existing surface point group and adjust that. So once you go into your existing surface point group, existing ground, sorry, if you right click properties, and in this case, it's basically including all the points, but it's excluding these points and any points with those specific this description matches. Now, a couple ways to do it. If I put a comma in here, and I know that these are called TH, you'll see on this point it has TH in front of them. So if I go into properties on this, and if I go into exclude, I put a comma TH, then I can put an asterisk after that. Click apply, hit regen, and you'll notice that now it's excluded those points that have TH in front of them. Okay? The other way to do it, click apply, it's going to bring it back. Go to existing ground, properties, exclude. I can select specific ones in the drawing I want to exclude. So I know this is one I want to exclude. There's another 0. There's another 0. Here's another 0. Here's another 0. I believe that's all of them. Oh, there might be one down there. Oh, we'll do that for now. Go ahead, hit enter. Now you'll notice I've taken those shots out. Click apply, click OK, and you'll notice once again it's adjusted my surface based off of that. So the nice thing about point groups, use them to your advantage. So if you took a shot of an invert of a pipe or a top of a pipe, or if you see your ground not looking correctly, for example, based off of your points, that's just really throwing something off, One, you can do a boundary to, stop that, or two, you can actually go in there uh, and adjust your points. But we'll get over boundaries when we actually go over the surfaces a little bit. But I did want to go over in regards to the points that you can exclude points from that existing surface to make your surface, look more what it's supposed to look like. Or if you added points in there, in this example, there were solar borings that we added after the fact. We didn't have a elevation. We just wanted to do a geolocation of them, and it was just a point, elevation 0. So it was actually taking that information and then providing it to the existing surface. So I just wanted to go over that a little bit of removing those points from that point group. So you could select your scale 1 inch equals 40 to start out for the scale, but you can adjust this at any time. So as you go back and forth, if you go down the bottom right hand corner here, if you do 1 inch equals 1, you can kind of see everything is very, very small. But if you change this to 1 to 10, you'll now see those scales get up a lot larger. So that's kind of on the fly scaling, which is very nice with Civil 3D. It's all dynamic, it's on the fly. You don't have to worry about scaling things. So to remove the existing surface display, kind of went over already on this, but you go right click on the existing ground, surface properties, go ahead and click no display, and now only your points are displayed. And you can go back and forth on that. One nice thing I would recommend to do is on your points, I would always lock those. So go back to Civil 3D. On your points, if you right click all points, you can lock the points. So now if I were to try to move this point, it won't let me move it anywhere. It could do the leaders, but it won't allow me to move that point anywhere. So if I were to select this point, this triangle is actually where I can move the point to, but it won't allow me to do it. Now if I uncheck this, unlock my points, go ahead and select that, I can move it. You see, I can move it anywhere I want to. And again, on the fly, wherever I move this point, it's going to adjust my topo automatically to wherever I move that point. So it's just a good habit to get into of locking your points, because sometimes if you're selecting something and you accidentally just grab and move it somewhere, and it doesn't have to be on purpose, obviously, but you can move it to wherever you want if you don't have them locked. So the recommendation is go ahead and get in the habit of locking those points, and then that way there's no question. And another good thing about this, if you know that you need to move a point, that you can do so, and it will adjust the topo, the ground surface, accordingly to where you move it also. So that's go ahead and locking the points. To go over the points a little bit, when you select a point, you'll see two nodes displayed. One is a diamond, one is a square. The diamond is the actual point, and that's where you can move that point wherever you can on that screen. The square is a node where you can basically move that so it's a leader associated with that point. So if you get too many points in a certain location, you can go ahead and kind of point those in with specific leaders, and you can change those leaders. So if we go back to our point here, again, the diamond, you can move your point, the square, and if you just select on it, it'll actually tell you. You can move a label. So you'll notice here that you have a leader. You can move the leader, rotate the label, reset label location. So if you hit reset, it'll go back. You could stretch it wherever you want. So there's some options with the leaders, which is very nice. I always like it. So if you're, I don't know, if you have multiple points in here, you could select this point, leader, and move this out. And that way, when your points are all jammed up, you can at least use these leaders to your advantage to see exactly what those points are showing instead of building on top of one another. Kind of went over the scale a little bit earlier, but the smaller the scale, the smaller the points are displayed. Down in the bottom right-hand corner here. Anytime you make changes to the surface and or points, you must make sure you are in the active drawing view. So you'll notice here it's an active drawing view. Go into Tool Space under your point groups and right-click Update. That'll take away the exclamation point. So anytime you move a point or if you add a point, it's going to throw an exclamation point. You just basically have to update those points. This slide basically goes over the prospector and talking about point editor and the prospector tab, and going over the point groups. We'll go over that in Civil 3D. Same thing with this. It goes over to prospector tab, talking about editing the points to dialog box and the point editor. So we'll go over that in Civil 3D right now. So if you go ahead and select the survey control group, it'll just kind of give you a quick overview down below showing what's in that point group, the northern, eastern, the description, the elevation. So it's just kind of a quick overview of all the different point groups that you have shown. The next thing is working with point groups. Point groups, they're set up in our templates this way. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, there are all the existing point groups that we have, and there's a description for each one of those. You can add point groups if you want to. You can take point groups out. You can add different prefixes to those to put in a specific point group, and we'll go over all that. But this is just a basics for everyone to start with the templates to use the templates for based off of our field codes. So the way the point group display order works, the point group display order for a drawing determines the order in which the point groups are drawn when a drawing is opened or graphics are regenerated. The first or the highest point group in the list is drawn last. A point is drawn only once each time drawing graphics are regenerated. A point that belongs to more than one point group is drawn by the point group that is highest in the display order, and it is unaffected by the point groups that are lower in the display order. This can determine the point style, point label style, and the layer used to display the point. The point group display order is also used to display override values for elevation and descriptions and labels. If a point belongs to one or more point group, the first point group in the display order that draws a point will determine whether override values are used. If the point group has an override value for elevation or description, the label is displayed using the override value. If the point group does not have an override, the label is displayed without the override. So in other words, when you have your point groups in Civil 3D in the tool space, you'll notice on the prospector, you have your point groups. Anything that has a black circle next to them, that's actually point groups that are being used. So in this case, if we select the point groups and right-click Properties, you can see the different displays on the point groups dialog box. So on the left-hand side, displays the point groups changes dialog box, and then on the right side, it updates all point groups. So if you notice here, no display is under all points. So right now, if I were to look at this drawing, all my points will be showing because no displayed is just under that. This little text box over here, icons, The top one moves everything. So if you select one, this moves it all the way to the top. This one moves it to the next one above it. This one moves it to the one below that, and then this one moves it all the way to the bottom. So if you want to no display all the way to the bottom, you just go ahead and click the arrow with the little underline underneath it, and it'll put it all the way down at the bottom, meaning that all your points will be displayed. Or if you didn't want none of your points is displayed, go ahead and select no display point group. Click this arrow with the little arrow up top. Click that, and no display will go to the top. So we'll go over that in Civil 3D real quick. So what it's showing here, I'm just going to turn off my surface real quick just so we can kind of see and concentrate on the points. So right now all my display points are showing. So if I expand my point groups, right now all points is showing. So if I right click on my point groups properties, there's a little dialog box that shows up. And again, if you make this bigger, it'll kind of give you an idea of, what the description is. You can make this a little smaller. But right now, no display. Use this point group to control which points are displayed or not. So if I hit no display, and I put that all the way up top, hit OK, you'll notice none of my points are displayed. And again, if I hit no display and send it down to the bottom, click OK, now all my points are displayed. So what I would recommend, at least as a minimum, is that I would put your survey control points when you actually go to do a design and have it displayed on your plan view. So if you go to properties, I always put my no display at top, all the way at the top, and then my survey control, that's what I want shown. Go ahead and bring that to the top. Click apply, OK. And now you'll notice that I have 4 hubs located on this drawing. Make these a little bigger. And you'll notice one thing, a point style is different than what we had before. So this again goes over your properties of your point groups. So if I had all my points above my survey control, whatever the properties for my all points group layer is going to override my existing survey control point group, whichever is below that. So if I click apply, you'll notice that now this changes to a it's cross. Go back to my properties, and if I bring that up, click apply, I still have all my display points there, but now you'll notice on all my TBMs or my survey control points, it's above my all points, so it's taking over that type, point style. So example, center line. You can do the same thing if we want to bring that to the top. So now center line is going to trump over that. Style. So if anything has a center line associated with it, you'll see the little CL point style. So just keep that in mind as you're going through the point groups that, whatever the style, point layer style is going to be on top. That's going to trump everything else. So your all points, if you go to properties, you see the point style as a plus. So that's a default. If you wanted to change that to a circle, you can most certainly do that. And now they're all set as circles. Or if you wanted to change it to none, so if you didn't want to have a point in there, you could change it to none. So the default is the plus sign on that. So again, just talking about a little bit on the existing ground is showing. No display is below it. Existing ground's on top. Now if I do my survey control, only my survey control is showing. This just kind of goes over to look and change the specific properties within the point group. To look and change specific properties within the point group, you can go ahead and right-click on properties, and then it'll give this information on the actual point group itself. So I have these different tabs across the top that you can look at. So to have the information, what that actual point group is. So in this case, it's existing survey control. Gives a short description, permanent and temporary benchmarks, instrument points, turning points, and property or easement pins or markers. The point style is a benchmark, and the point label style is elevation description. So if you wanted to change that so you have your point number on there, you can most certainly go ahead and change that in this screen. The Include tab, this shows the points included in that point group. It will include all points numbered 1 through 99 in this point group, because that's what we decided on our templates. And then the default styles. Basically what happens here is the description of the points will be displayed if they match. Since there is an asterisk after the prefix, as long as you put in the prefix, it will capture anything with that prefix and put it in that point group. So example, if you just wrote TBM dash hub set number 1, because it has TBM as a prefix, it's going to put it in this specific point group, existing survey control. Exclude. So if you wanted to exclude certain points, you could do that. And then the point list, it'll actually give you a point list, summary, if you will, of what points there are in that specific point groups. Now before getting into changing point styles, I'm going to go back to Civil 3D. Just kind of go over these again. So if we're right-click, survey control properties, the include, numbers matching 1 through 99. So if you accidentally put a hub somewhere and you called it, forgot to call it TBM, or you forgot to put it in the number 1 through 99. You can actually go in your drawing, you can select it in your drawing and say, hey, well, this tree was really a hub. Go ahead and hit select, and now it adds that into the drawing. And then again, with the exclude, you can actually exclude something that you said, oh man, I accidentally put a TBM in here and I really didn't want to call it a TBM. You can exclude that by doing it this way, or another way of doing it, you can rename it, or renumber it so it's not associated within that point group. And then again, this is your point list. So this kind of gives you a summary of what points are in that point group. And the summary basically just kind of gives you an idea of what it is as far as the properties are concerned in that point group. So if I wanted to change my point label style, like I stated before, if I wanted to have the number on there, number elevation description, hit apply. Now you notice that it changed, that this is my point number 2. The default on that is elevation description. Changing point sizes. Sometimes, you want your point sizes to really jump out, especially if you're looking at TBMs and things of that nature. So if you want to change the size of the text for a point style, follow these steps. Make sure you select the point style that you want to increase in size. You can do this by selecting the point and looking at the properties to see which style it is assigned to. So in this case, if I select this, point label style is elevation description. So you have to keep in mind it's only changing that point label style that it's selected. So elevation description is the only one that's going to be changed. Now what you want to do is go into the settings tab in tool space and select the elevation description. This is the label style that you want to be changing. If you right click on that in your settings tab, elevation description, go ahead and click edit. And then in the layout tab, you want to go down to text and you want to change the text height. The default is 0.1250. If you want to increase it, obviously go up a little bit. If you want to decrease it, go down a little bit. So if I wanted to, for example, if I wanted all my survey controls to be a lot larger than my regular text size. So right now, if I go into my properties and they're set up as elevation description. So that's my default. If I go into my settings, points, label styles, and again, elevation description, we have to go ahead and click edit. Make sure you're in the layout tab under text, under text height. So just to really exaggerate it, I'm just going to make it 0.2. Click apply, and you'll notice that all those now jump out a little bit larger in size. And another thing is you can actually change the color if you wanted to. So they jump out. So now your TBMs jump out in a different color. So that's just a little bit of on the point groups and how you can adjust those. One thing you should have in your design folder, working folder, tech folder, whatever you want to call it, you should print out your points to have in the folder. I'd also recommend your as-built point group printing out and also your stakeout point group printing out. Or you can just print them all out at once, however you want to do it, but they should be printed out and placed in the technical folder. The easiest way that I found to do this is to print out your points or your point groups is to go on the home screen and make sure the toolbox is on. So on the right hand side of your tool space, you'll see your prospector, settings, survey, and toolbox. Make sure that's selected if you don't see the toolbox tab. Expand the miscellaneous utilities, expand reports, go down to points and then points report, and right click on that and click execute. So this is a Kogo point report. On the top left, you want to hit the point selection tab. Go ahead and click all points. You can select them all, or you can select certain point groups. So if you just wanted to do your TBMs, or if you just wanted to do your stakeout points, you can do that by just selecting that, specific point groups and filtering those out. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead and hit all points. Make sure you have to select list points in order for those points to show up here. And then you'll see the actual points show up here. So if you don't hit that list points, there'll be no points here. You try to go ahead and create a report, you'll see no points. That's because you haven't listed them. You got to make sure you hit list points. Believe me, I did that so many times before I figured that out. So list points is very important to choose. And this will kind of give you all your points. Select the columns you want to show on the report. At a minimum, I would put the point number, the northern, eastern, elevation, and the full description. If you wanted to add more, you could. And again, just like the point group manager, you can put these in an order in which you want to, based off of how you want it to print out. And in order to create your report, you want to make sure you want to select this little folder. Right now, it's giving me a location where to save it as an HTML file. You want to go ahead and select the little folder and hit the drop down, and it gives you different options of how you want to save it. So it could be an HTML file, a text file, a Word document, Excel file, and also a PDF. My recommendation is just doing an Excel file because you can adjust some stuff in the Excel file, or if you want to delete rows or make a heading or whatever you want to do, you can do that with Excel file. But once you do that, go ahead and hit save. It's going to open up Excel and it's going to bring you up this preview window. Here you can go ahead and enter any information you want to, and then it's going to give you a nice printout of your point number, your northern, eastern, elevation, and your full description. So that's the easiest way that I found go ahead and making a point list. But at a minimum, make sure that you put your survey points in there at a minimum in your technical folder for that project. The next thing we're going to go ahead through is exporting points from Civil 3D for Stakeout and adding them into the Magnet software. These are directions that are used after you have completed adding your points needed for Stakeout. So right now, you don't have any points in there. We actually have to put points in the drawing in order to export those points. So we'll go over that real quick in Civil 3D. So if I wanted to add points manually because I needed to do a stakeout of something, and this is very generic, go back in the Prospector tab, go to your home, points, point creation tools, and if you hover over each one of these, it'll tell you what it is, but miscellaneous manual, and hit the down arrow, and you hit the manual button. And what it's going to do, it's going to say specify a specific location for the new point. So I'm just going to put a point here, enter a point description. I'm just going to say top of dam. Enter. I'm going to get an elevation of, I don't know, say 22. Hit enter. So you'll notice when I select this, it starts out with the next available number. Well, keep in mind, if we're doing stakeout points, we want to start out at 3,000. So what you want to do in your Create Points dialog box, the down arrow here, if you go to point identity, the next point number, we want to call that 3001 in this case because I already put 299 and we're going to change that to 3000 and hit enter. So now when I go in my manual point, enter point description, I'm just going to call it top of dam again. Elevation 22, enter. And you'll notice now it started at 3001. And we'll call another one here, top of dam, and 22, enter to complete the command. Now the one nice thing, we'll close this out, one nice thing about point editing is that you can select this point and you can right click, edit this point, and you can come right up here and just type in 3000. Close that out, regen, and it's changed it to 3000 fairly quickly. And you'll notice on this side again, we notice these little exclamation points. So what do we need to do? We need to go right click on the point groups, update, and it updates those points. So now we have technically 1, 2, 3 points in a stakeout layer now. So if we go to, or point group, so if we hit staking, we go to the preview here. Staking always has your temporary or your benchmarks located in there, and also the points from 3,000 to 4,999. So this shows you that points 3,000, 3,001, 3,002 are now in that point group staking. So now that we have points, we want to export those points in to the data collector. And that's what these directions are going to go over. So if we go back, so this is just giving another reminder that all the stakeout points should be numbered from 3,000 to 4,999. This will place all the points into the PR staking point group. So what you want to do in the points, on the prospector, you right click export, and again make sure the PNEZD, delimited is selected. Select the location where you want to save it. That's usually in the working file of the project. And again, you can have the do elevation adjustment if possible selected. That's fine. Go ahead and click OK. Now in this case, if you notice, I'm right clicking my points. So this is all the points. So if you go back, and we'll go over it in Civil 3D, but you can actually right click and export a certain point group if you wanted to. But in this case, we're doing all the points. So once you have those files in here, this is a text file that you can look at. And then you can go ahead and open up your Magnet software or your data collector, whatever you're using, the SurvCE data collector. And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to import those points into that job. You can call it a new job and create a new folder called, John Doe Farmer, Stakeout, import all those points. Or if you already have that job in the data collector, you can just overwrite those points and it'll add those additional points into the data collector and merge them. There's a couple ways you can merge them also, or you can overwrite them. But just keep in mind, because I've had it happen before, where if you go out in the field and you do a survey and say you take an additional benchmark, for example, you go out and you have 3 benchmarks, you add a benchmark. A week from now, you put on, your survey points, you get ready to stake it out. What you do is you go ahead and hit that and export your points and you overwrite that file. Well, now that benchmark has been deleted. So my point is, anytime you go out into the field and you make any type of changes to that survey file, whether it be adding a point, maybe adjusting some elevations if you're out there, or adding additional survey point data, make it a habit of coming back into the office and taking that data and just re-uploading it into Civil 3D so you have the most current data you're working from that data collector. File management is very crucial with this, because if you're doing multiple surveys and as-builts throughout the process, it can get very messy very quickly. So just try to keep everything straight in that and uploading those points as quickly as possible, and then that way you don't lose points or data or overwrite it or delete it by accident. All right, so you want to come into points, right click, export points, PNEZD, delimited, destination file. If you have it set up correctly, it should go directly to your folder. And we're just going to say all points Go ahead and click open. Do elevation adjustment as possible is fine. Go ahead and click OK. Now if we just wanted to do our stakeout points, export points. Again, we can just call it stakeout. Should go in the same one. Click open. Destination file. Click OK. Now if we want to look in that, here's all our points. And it's showing our 3,000 points in there. And then our stakeout, showing our TBMs and also the 3,000 points in there. So that's it for this training video. This pretty much goes over the points and bringing in points and exporting points and actually adding points to your project.